Do you believe that walls can talk? That sometimes the very bricks around us hold stories too raw, too tangled to speak aloud? This is the story of a man who shattered hearts and trust in one swift stroke, erasing his unborn baby's name from the nursery wall. Little did he know that fate would carve that same name into the towering facade of his company's newest building. Love, ambition, betrayal, and redemption twist through every corridor of this tale. Buckle in for a journey that delves into hidden pasts and uncertain futures, where every character holds a key to a devastating secret. The late afternoon sun streamed through the tall windows of Alexander Haven's corner office at Horizon Global Ventures. The golden light cast a halo on the gleaming awards and plaques that lined the walls, each one echoing the success that the Haven family had worked generations to achieve. Alexander, a tall, imposing figure with silver-streaked hair at just 38, leaned back in his leather chair. He drummed his fingers on the polished mahogany desk, his gaze cold and distant, fixed on an ornate pen, an anniversary gift from his wife, Cassandra. In that moment, the pen symbolized everything that had once been simple and hopeful in his life. Now, it only served as a reminder of the secrets he had kept and the people he had hurt. He had always prided himself on his ability to control every variable, but as the afternoon light drifted across the office, he realized control had slipped through his fingers the very day he found out Cassandra was pregnant. They had never spoken much about children. Sure, there were passing fantasies of a large family or a small one, depending on the day, but their careers always took center stage. Cassandra was a brilliant architect who had designed luxury estates from London to Bali. It was her passion, her calling. She had come from a humble background, and each building she created was a testament to how far she'd climbed. Alexander's phone buzzed, jolting him from his reverie. The name on the caller ID read, Cassandra, and a familiar, cold knot of guilt tightened in his stomach. She'd called 5 times that day, and each call had gone to voicemail. Now, perhaps out of reflex, he answered. Alec, Cassandra's voice was tight. She used his pet name, though the warmth that usually accompanied it was gone. We need to talk. I'm at the house. Alexander swallowed hard. I'll be there soon. He left the office without a backward glance, ignoring the stares of his employees as he stalked past glass-walled conference rooms. He drove to their estate on the outskirts of the city, a sprawling piece of land overshadowed by centuries-old oaks. The driveway alone was half a mile of winding pavement lined with perfectly manicured hedges. When he finally stepped inside, an uneasy silence welcomed him. Years ago, upon first acquiring the property, he and Cassandra had dreamed of filling those halls with laughter, children's voices, dinner parties, new memories. They even had a room at the end of the upstairs corridor designated as a nursery. Its walls were once adorned with gentle pastel colors, a rocking chair Cassandra's grandmother had passed down, and a small name plaque they'd chosen for their soon-to-be child. The child who would never come. He found Cassandra in the nursery. The walls were now stark and blank, the rocking chair shoved into a corner. She stood with her back to him, arms crossed, her shoulders trembling. What have you done? Her voice was steady yet thick with unshed tears. Alexander closed his eyes for a moment. He had instructed the staff to repaint the nursery and remove all traces of the name they had once agreed upon, Adrian. It had been a reckless, impulsive decision, one made out of heartbreak and the fear of being haunted by what could have been. Losing the baby had fractured something deep inside him, a place he never knew existed. So, he did the one thing that made sense in his broken state, erase the pain. Cassandra turned, revealing tears clinging to her lashes. We never even talked about it, she whispered, her voice cracking. You just had them remove his name, like he never existed. I couldn't stand it, Alexander said, his own voice low and strained. I couldn't stand walking by this room and seeing that name every day. It hurt too much. She stared at him, her eyes glassy with betrayal. Hurt too much. For whom? For you. She took a trembling breath. Because I still dream of him at night, Alec. I wake up and for a moment, I forget he's gone. And now, you've taken the last piece of him. There's nothing left at all, except this emptiness. His throat burned. He wanted to hold her, to promise her it would be okay, but the chasm between them felt too wide to cross. Cassandra brushed past him, leaving only the faint scent of her expensive perfume and the suffocating weight of heartbreak in the air. He stood alone in the barren nursery, haunted by the absence of a name. He thought about how that single act of painting over a memory had torn them further apart, and he wondered if they would ever find their way back to each other. Yet, destiny had other plans. The name he tried to bury was about to resurface in a place he'd never expect, etched in stone on the facade of a building that would soon reshape both their lives. Long before he met Cassandra, Alexander Haven was raised in a world of opulence. The Havens were a cornerstone of Massachusetts society, their family wealth tracing back to old shipping lines that made fortunes in the 19th century. Over time, their empire evolved into real estate, investment banking, and eventually, high-tech ventures. Alexander's father, Gordon Haven, was a formidable presence, meticulous, shrewd, and intimidating. He had raised Alexander with a single mantra: legacy first, everything else second. While this instilled in Alexander a relentless drive for success, it also planted deep insecurities. He grew to view relationships as transactions, always measuring the risk and potential reward. Cassandra Delgado was nothing like the women in Alexander's social circle. A self-made architectural prodigy, her breakthroughs in eco-friendly design had captured the attention of global leaders and philanthropists. She had an almost mystical ability to see aesthetics and engineering as two halves of the same whole. They met at a fundraising gala for a children's hospital in Boston. Cassandra was there to pitch a new pediatric ward design, one that integrated nature-inspired spaces to comfort sick children. Alexander, ironically, was there to represent the Haven family's charitable giving, a duty that always generated positive publicity. Their connection was instant. Drawn to her fiery determination, Alexander found himself opening up in ways he never had. Cassandra, for her part, saw past his business fortress to the man who yearned for genuine passion. They married quickly, too quickly, some whispered, and became what Boston's high society regarded as the power couple of the decade. At first, their partnership was seamless. Cassandra's innovative vision breathed new life into the Haven empire, while the family's resources allowed her to design groundbreaking projects. Yet, as months turned into years, Gordon began to question Cassandra's loyalty. She wasn't from their world of old money and unspoken rules. She refused to let the Haven name overshadow her own identity, which Gordon saw as a threat to the family's collective prestige. Alexander was caught in the middle, constantly trying to appease both his father and his wife. Then came the pregnancy. For a moment, everything seemed bright. A new life, they believed, would unify them all. Even Gordon softened at the prospect of a grandchild to continue the Haven line. The baby would be named Adrian, after Cassandra's beloved grandfather who had first encouraged her to pursue architecture. The pregnancy also coincided with a major business venture, an enormous real estate project in downtown Boston, a corporate park that would bear the Haven name and stand as a testament to the family's enduring influence. But fate was cruel. Complications led to a tragic miscarriage. Cassandra spiraled into grief, and Alexander retreated behind his stoic walls, burying his pain beneath new projects and deals. The nursery remained a silent, untouched reminder until the day he decided to erase Adrian's name, and with it, a piece of Cassandra's heart. Time marched on, but work never stopped. The real estate project, officially dubbed the Haven Complex, was inching closer to its grand unveiling. It promised to revitalize downtown Boston, a multi-building campus merging state-of-the-art office spaces with green rooftops and communal parks. Cassandra had contributed some early design concepts before her grief took her away, and Alexander had let her go, not wanting to add to her stress. One crisp morning, Alexander stepped out of his black SUV in front of the nearly completed complex for a final walkthrough. Broad columns flanked an enormous plaza, and glass-clad towers reached for the sky. The air was filled with the smell of fresh cement and the buzz of final preparations. His team of architects and investors trailed behind him, eager to show off their progress. They approached the main tower, a shimmering monument of glass and steel. Next to the entrance, a large ceremonial wall was reserved for a special inscription dedicated to the Haven legacy. Just as they were about to enter, the site manager, Miriam Kelly, hurried up to him, a strange look on her face. "Mr. Haven," she said, pushing her glasses up her nose. "We've discovered something on the decorative facade. It wasn't part of the official design, but it's etched deep into the stone. It will take significant effort and time to remove." Alexander raised an eyebrow. "Etched? Like graffiti?" "Not exactly. It's a name, sir." She paused, swallowing hard. "Adrian." In an instant, Alexander's heart plummeted. The mere mention of that name, here, in the heart of his largest development, felt like a cosmic punch to the gut. "How did it get there?" he demanded, his voice taut. "We're still investigating," she replied, her voice hushed. "It's small, but it's chiseled deliberately, with actual stone carving techniques. Not just some random tagger. We can remove it, but it will leave a visible patch unless we replace the entire panel, which could take weeks." A storm of memories and guilt flooded him. He could still see Cassandra's tear-stained eyes. Why here? Why now? Was this sabotage? Or some bizarre, cruel coincidence? He turned to his team, feigning control. "Gather the crew. Let's see this for ourselves." They walked to the main entrance. There, on the lower corner of a heavy stone block, in ornate script no more than 3 inches tall, he saw it. The name Adrian glinted in the morning light, as if mocking him. The crowd of engineers and project managers murmured, but no one dared speak the name aloud again. The tension rippling from Alexander was palpable. Finally, he cleared his throat. "Get the best stonemason to see if it can be carefully removed," he ordered, his voice sharp. "And I want a full investigation. Check every second of security footage. Find out who came through here." As the group dispersed, Alexander stared at the etched name. Questions churned in his mind. Was someone trying to torment him? Or was this Cassandra, grappling with her grief in her own anguished way? He knew she was a talented designer, but stone carving wasn't her skill. Still, a seed of doubt flickered. He traced the letters with his fingertips, fighting the tightness in his chest. Adrian. A child who never got a chance at life, but whose name, it seemed, refused to be erased. The day after discovering the name, Alexander hardly slept. Anxiety wrapped around him like a vice, fueled by a new wave of tension at home. Cassandra, though physically present, had retreated to her design studio, a minimalist glass annex behind the house, offering no explanation for her solitary nights. At the office, an undercurrent of gossip followed him down the hallways. He knew they suspected the etched name held personal significance. Desperate for answers, Alexander plunged into the security footage. He, Miriam, and a small team of IT specialists spent hours scrubbing through camera angles, but they found nothing. The exterior cameras were either angled away from that specific patch of stone or were obscured by scaffolding. Then, a glitch on one camera's timestamp caught his eye. A short segment, no more than 15 minutes, was missing from the official logs. "You see this?" Alexander said, pointing to the gap. "We're missing footage between 2:30 and 2:45 a.m. last Tuesday." The IT specialist, a wiry young man named Conrad, tapped on his keyboard. "It looks like a forced corruption in the data, sir. Someone with advanced knowledge of our systems might have done this deliberately." Alexander's hands clenched into fists. "I want a list of everyone who had access to these cameras that night." The list of potential suspects was long but fruitless. None had a personal vendetta that would explain carving that specific name. As far as Alexander knew, its significance was known only to family and a few close friends. That evening, he paid an unannounced visit to Cassandra's studio. He found her hunched over a blueprint, her focus absolute. "We need to talk," he said, his voice gentler than he intended. She shrugged, not looking up. "About what?" He took a step closer. "The name on the new building. Adrian. You wouldn't know anything about that, would you?" She stood up slowly, her eyes wide with astonishment. "What makes you think I would do that?" "I'm not accusing you," he said, though the words felt hollow. "But you've been distant, and I know how important Adrian's memory is to you. This could be some act of grief." Frustration flashed across her face. "So, because I'm grieving, I'd break into your construction site in the dead of night and carve our baby's name on a stone? Is that really what you think of me, Alexander?" The use of his full name stung. "I just need answers, Cassandra." Her eyes brimmed with fresh tears. "I can't even stand looking at that building. It reminds me of what you did to the nursery, wiping away Adrian's name like he never mattered. I am not stepping foot near your precious Haven complex, let alone defacing it." She picked up a small clay model she was working on, a pediatric clinic in Honduras. "This is how I honor Adrian," she said softly. "By designing places that help children. Because that was our dream, wasn't it? That dream died a little the day you repainted that room." Stung and ashamed, Alexander left the studio, the chasm between them wider than ever. Over the next week, his frustrations mounted. His father, Gordon, unexpectedly returned from a supposed overseas business trip, appearing just as things were reaching a boiling point. He summoned Alexander to the old Haven mansion in Beacon Hill, a place Alexander had avoided since childhood. "I've been hearing rumors," Gordon said, his voice echoing in the cavernous study. "Something about the name Adrian carved into your new building. Care to explain?" Alexander's jaw clenched. He'd never told his father the baby's name. "It's vandalism. I'm handling it." Gordon's expression was cold. "I understand losing a child is hard, but you need to keep your head in the game. The city is watching. The press is circling. Anything that smells of scandal will tarnish the Haven name. Is that all you care about? The name?" Alexander's voice was tight with suppressed anger. "Not once have you asked how Cassandra or I are doing." Gordon's lips pressed into a thin line. "Grief is a personal luxury. Business is not. The family legacy must remain intact. If you can't manage that, I will step in." The threat hung in the air, suffocating and familiar. Alexander left the mansion feeling crushed by the oppressive weight of his upbringing, where image was everything and emotion was a liability. At last, the morning of the grand opening arrived. A crisp autumn breeze whipped through downtown Boston. Technicians bustled, journalists angled for the best shot, and officials from City Hall mingled. Alexander stood backstage in a tailored charcoal suit, his mind a tempest. He glanced at his phone, hoping for a text from Cassandra. Nothing. He stepped onto the stage, his speech beginning smoothly. He praised Boston, his employees, and the bright future symbolized by the Haven complex. Then, his eyes caught a glimpse of someone in the crowd. Cassandra. She stood at the back, arms folded, her expression unreadable. For a moment his voice faltered, but he forged ahead, concluding with a practiced statement on legacy. With a flourish, he motioned toward the large drape covering the ceremonial inscription. As it fell away, it revealed the words, "For innovation. For progress. For the future." The crowd erupted in cheers, but beneath it, the small, haunting name remained. Adrian. Though partially obscured by a rushed patchwork job, it was still legible up close, and soon, curious murmurs rippled through the attendees. He braced for the inevitable questions. "Mr. Haven, can you comment on the name etched beneath your new inscription?" a reporter called out. "We had a minor issue with vandalism," he said, forcing a measured smile. "It's being addressed." Before more questions could swarm him, an older man approached Charles Deering, a retired advisor who had served the Haven family for decades. "We should speak privately," Charles said, guiding Alexander away from the crowd. Inside the lobby, Charles wasted no time. "I believe I have information about who carved that name." He pulled an envelope from his coat. "Someone sent me these. Still images from a CCTV camera across the street, not your official site cameras." Alexander took the envelope. The black and white still showed a figure in a hooded jacket stooping in the exact spot where the name was found. It was clearly not Cassandra. One partial side view, though grainy, made his chest tighten. The face was just visible enough for him to recognize Elias Ward, a childhood friend who had left Horizon Global Ventures years ago under tense circumstances. Elias had been ousted amid a scandal involving a questionable real estate deal. "Elias," Alexander breathed. "Why would he do this?" "He's harbored resentment for a long time," Charles said. "It's possible he learned about your baby's name from loose-lipped staff, or perhaps even overheard your father." Shaken, Alexander clutched the photos. It made a twisted kind of sense. Elias was cunning. If he wanted to strike at Alexander psychologically, this was a cruel but potent way to do it. But how did he corrupt the security footage? "He's an IT expert, or at least he has connections," Charles replied. "He could have bribed someone." Rage simmered in Alexander's veins. Elias had taken their private tragedy and warped it into a weapon. As he glanced toward the exit, he saw Cassandra watching him from afar, her eyes filled with curiosity. He knew then that this was far from over. That evening, Alexander found Cassandra in their expansive kitchen. He set the envelope on the marble island. It was Elias Ward. She blinked, confused. "Elias? I haven't heard that name in ages." "He carved Adrian's name on the building," Alexander explained, laying the still images before her. "Revenge. I had to let him go after he jeopardized one of our major deals." Her face darkened. "So, in his twisted mind, your grief became his ammunition? That's beyond cruel." "I'm sorry," Alexander said, finally reaching for her hand. "For how I handled everything with Adrian. For erasing his name. I was wrong." She didn't pull away. "I know you hurt too, Alec. But it felt like you tried to wash him out of our lives the moment it got too painful." "I was," he admitted, a lump forming in his throat. They stood in quiet sorrow, united for the first time in months by the same sense of loss. "What are you going to do about Elias?" she finally asked. "Confront him," he said. Carefully. 2 days later, a cryptic text arrived, "We should talk. I have information you don't want made public. The bar at the Old Derby on Salem Street, 9 p.m. Come alone." It was unsigned, but Alexander knew. He found Elias in a corner booth, swirling a glass of whiskey. "I knew you'd come," Elias smirked. "You've got a lot of nerve," Alexander said, sliding into the booth. "Carving my baby's name into my building. It got your attention, didn't it?" Elias sipped his whiskey. "I want an apology. Compensation. And a senior position back at Horizon Global Ventures." "You committed fraud, Elias." "I had no choice." "You always have a choice," Elias corrected. "And I have some interesting information. Details about the Haven Empire, and even your marriage, that would make for fascinating headlines. Reinstate me, or watch me dismantle your carefully curated world piece by piece." Disgusted, Alexander stood and walked away. He wouldn't be blackmailed. Back at Horizon, he convened a small circle of trusted advisors, Miriam, Charles, and the firm's head of compliance. Even Cassandra joined, her sharp mind offering a fresh perspective. It felt like a glimmer of their old partnership. Late one evening, while scanning older architectural plans for the Haven complex, Cassandra found a cryptic note in the margins, referencing a specialized data storage vault in the subbasement. A vault Elias had insisted on implementing years ago. This sub-basement vault, she said, pushing the plan toward him. Do you remember authorizing it? He furrowed his brow. Not specifically. Elias was head of security protocols back then. He might have snuck it into the design. He might be counting on no one remembering it exists, Miriam added. It's possible he stashed his leverage there. We're going down there, Alexander declared. Under the cover of night, the four of them slipped into the silent complex. They found the vault, a nondescript metal door with an electronic keypad. Miriam, using a hacking tool, managed to get it open. Inside, a single steel cabinet sat in a dusty corner. Charles pried it open with a crowbar. Inside was a single external hard drive labeled HGV Archives, and a stack of documents. Alexander carefully lifted the drive. He rummaged through the papers, spotting spreadsheets and old memos referencing questionable shell companies and offshore deals. It was Elias's time bomb. This is more extensive than I imagined, Alexander said, his face grim. Some of these deals they might be my father's. The next morning, Alexander summoned Gordon to his estate and confronted him with the files. In Cassandra's presence, the older man's composure finally cracked. I did what had to be done to keep this family powerful, he roared. And here you are, unraveling it all because of some petty threats. Petty threats? Alexander shot back. He carved Adrian's name on our building to torment us. Don't you understand what this means? Gordon's gaze flickered to Cassandra, softening for a fraction of a second before hardening again. This is business. Bury it. No, Alexander said, his voice firm. I'm done with blackmail. I'm done with secrets. That evening, as a cold rain battered the windows, Cassandra found Alexander in the study, staring at an old photo of them in front of the nursery, both beaming with joy. It felt like a lifetime ago. She slid an arm around his shoulders, and for the first time in weeks, he leaned into her warmth. I keep trying to hold everything together, he whispered. But maybe it's time to let it fall apart so we can rebuild honestly. He looked at her, his eyes filled with a desperate hope. Maybe we come clean. Let the authorities see the documents. If it implicates my father, so be it. I can't live like this anymore. A tear slipped down Cassandra's cheek. That's a huge risk, Alec. Our child was destroyed by secrets, he said, his voice breaking. I never told you how broken I was after we lost Adrian. I just buried it, and that only caused more pain. I don't want to bury anything anymore. She cupped his face, her own tears flowing freely. I've hated you for what you did, but part of me knew you were just as heartbroken. Maybe I just needed someone to blame. He held her close. This is our only chance to make something right. If I have to risk the Haven name for it, I will. Bolstered by Cassandra's support, Alexander met with an attorney. They handed over Elias's stash to federal investigators. The media storm was immediate. Headlines blared, stock prices wobbled, and Gordon, furious at the betrayal, threatened to disown his son. But Alexander stood his ground, choosing integrity over a tainted legacy. Elias, his leverage gone, tried to leak more documents, but they were dismissed as old news. His power had vanished. Amid the chaos, Alexander decided to rectify his greatest regret. While Cassandra was at a charity event, he snuck into the old nursery. He reopened the cans of paint, carefully mixing the soft blues and grays they had originally chosen. With a trembling hand, he painted the name Adrian in delicate lettering on the wall. He added small embellishments, a crescent moon and a field of tiny, silver stars, evoking the peaceful night sky they had once envisioned for their son. When Cassandra returned, she found him there, paintbrush in hand, silent tears slipping down his cheeks. She gasped, pressing a hand to her mouth. Without a word, she joined him, picking up a brush and adding her own finishing touches. They worked side by side, their quiet actions a prayer of forgiveness and remembrance. Afterwards, they slumped together on the floor, leaning against the freshly painted wall. For the first time, the name Adrian brought them solace instead of sorrow. Several months later, the investigations concluded. Gordon faced steep fines and was forced into retirement. Alexander took full control of Horizon Global Ventures, battered but intact. His willingness to confront corruption had ignited a renewed faith in the company's future. One quiet afternoon, Alexander and Cassandra strolled hand in hand through the Haven Complex Plaza. They paused at the stone panel where a faint outline of the letters was still visible. Instead of resentment, Alexander felt only a gentle pang of remembrance. "It's strange," Cassandra said, resting her head on his shoulder. "Adrian's name brought so much conflict, but in the end, it brought us back together." Alexander nodded, kissing her temple. "I guess fate finds odd ways to guide us." She smiled, a genuine, hopeful smile that he hadn't seen in years. "I've been thinking about the future," she said softly. "About maybe trying again one day." The corners of Alexander's mouth lifted. "I'd like that," he whispered, his heart swelling with a love he thought he had lost forever. That evening, as they returned to the estate, light spilled from the open nursery door. They had learned that you couldn't erase a memory, but you could choose how to honor it. They had faced the ghosts of their past and emerged not broken, but stronger, bound by a new promise. In time, their house would be filled with laughter again, and the name Adrian would no longer be a cry of loss, but a whisper of hope, a testament to the enduring power of love to rebuild, to heal, and to begin anew. And there you have it. A tale of ambition and heartbreak, where a single etched name tore through family secrets and forced a reckoning that no one saw coming. In the end, Alexander and Cassandra found the courage to face the ghosts that haunted them, to stand up against blackmail, and to carve a new path defined not by hidden deals or erased memories, but by honesty and love. If this story resonated with you, reminding you that every challenge can be an opportunity to rediscover what truly matters, then help us share that message. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more stories that delve into the heart of human drama, tales of triumph, tragedy, and the unbreakable bonds that hold us together. Thank you for being part of this journey. We'll see you in the next story.